Overwatch World Cup news? Is this real life? Well, yeah, it is. This is not a drill. You heard me correctly. Today, aka Saturday, December 17th, 2022, John Spector, aka Overwatch commercial leader and vice president at Blizzard, has announced that the Overwatch World Cup is set to return in 2023. It would seem that our cries for help within this community were heard after all for once, as all of the requests and people begging for it to come back has actually paid off. It seemed that they were listening and they're well aware of what we wanted, so they're going to give it another go this year. For those of you who are maybe a bit newer to the scene, we haven't had an Overwatch World Cup since 2019. It has been 3 years, and for a long time it seemed like it would never happen ever again. After 2019, it disappeared from existence, and there was no rumors of it coming back, and everyone firmly believed that its time in the spotlight was over and that this staple event would never return to us. I mean, even in 2019, it seemed like a miracle that it was even pulled off, and it was full of disasters in terms of funding and making certain teams be able to actually arrive to the event. It was really tough and very frustrating, and it seemed like the World Cup was going downhill since like the initial first couple that happened. So we were in an overall really bad spot with this event, so it was not a surprise to see it get vaulted for as long as it did. This kind of just came out of left field, completely shocking the entire community. And it's just so wonderful, as the World Cup was one of the first ever events that I actually watched in terms of like competitive Overwatch on a professional stage. The 2017 World Cup was one of the things that really cemented my interest in this game professionally. So to see it come back like this is just triggering all sorts of happiness within me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys who maybe, got some of your interest from the game during this time period as well, even if it was from a later World Cup, 2018, 2019, whatever it might have been. It was just a really exciting time for a lot of fan bases. It was a very unique thing for Overwatch, and the first couple were absolutely amazing. It's some of the most legendary events we've ever seen. There's so much history in terms of the teams, the countries, the players, all of that good stuff. It's one of the best events ever for sure at its best, so good on Blizzard and the Overwatch team for making this happen. I know it's not an easy thing to pull off, and the last couple of years just weren't as good as the first few, but man, you are going to get the fan base back on your side with this type of decision. This is the type of stuff that gets people happy and makes you want to tune into an event. We have something to seriously look forward to over the next year or so, and in between, when we do all of that waiting, there's going to be a lot of excellent discussions within this community, as well as predictions and like dream roster scenarios. However, before we get too into that and kind of think about who we want to see and all of that, it's important to get an idea of what the basic rundown of this event timeline is going to look like. We don't know all the details in particular, and I'm sure more stuff will get revealed over time, but here's a basic rundown of what we know so far heading into the future. So first up, in January, aka next month, they're going to announce the 36 countries and regions competing in the World Cup this year, and it's also going to be when they open up the committee applications and whatnot to decide who ends up running for that kind of stuff. But what I find more interesting is the tryouts. So there's going to be the regular tryouts, of course, with invites, but there's also going to be a brand new way for players to try and get their shot, which is going to come through an open tournament format called World Cup Trials. This will be taking place in February, and basically how it's going to go is the winning players get a direct spot in tryouts for their team, which is really, really sick. But of course, also players will just be able to sign up for the regular tryouts taking place in March, so this is more so a proving ground for more of the unknown talent, which is kind of cool in a way because it gives a lot of new people a shot to kind of get their names on the map. Maybe these tryouts won't be such a breeze and it'll actually be really competitive, which would be great for the spirit of this game. And while they didn't go into detail, apparently they're going to be offering both challenges and rewards for players to help celebrate the return of the World Cup. What this means exactly is kind of up for interpretation, but I'm kind of praying that they give us some World Cup skins. But anyway, then as we move into June, essentially, teams are going to get finalized, and then the World Cup qualifiers will take place through regional online competition to narrow down the 36 teams to 16 for the next phase of the tournament. And then from there, those 16 teams will battle out in a LAN environment in fall 2023 to determine our first World Cup champion since 2019 and our first champion in the new game. And how that tournament is going to go in the fall is pretty simple. Like usual, first we'll have the top 16 play in a group stage, and then the top 8 from those top 16 will move on to the final tournament, which again will be in a LAN environment, probably at BlizzCon, and then it'll be a single elimination bracket to determine who wins the gold medal. And currently, that is all the information that we know. It's a very basic rundown, and we don't know a ton of the details that we'd probably like to learn more about very soon, but surely as we get closer to a lot of these deadlines, we'll get more announcements and details very, very soon. So for now, just stay patient and be excited for the fact that this event is finally coming back. Although I have to say, even though it is a really exciting time, try and keep your expectations somewhat moderate because you never know where things could go wrong. I mean, for one, there's always the issue of funding and traveling. The last time we had a World Cup, it was a complete disaster in that regard for those non-top teams. It was tough for them to even make it there to begin with and have all of the right accommodations. So I really hope that Blizzard has a good plan in place to make sure that that does not happen again. Additionally, if we look at this timeline, after those first 3 months, we're kind of in a situation where Overwatch League is going to be returning, so for a lot of these players, it might be very difficult to balance the idea of participating in the World Cup with their actual job on top of it. And there's Contenders players as well in this exact situation. It could actually just directly interfere with their normal job that they're trying to do, with their normal team activities. For a lot of people, it won't matter for the pride of participating for their country. They won't mind doing it, but for a bunch of people, this might be too much, so some of your dream players that you'd like to see compete for certain countries may have zero interest at all thanks to these conflicting schedules. It could be severe burnout to the maximum for a lot of these players. Consider the Overwatch League and the current state it is in during this disastrous offseason we've been going through. The APAC region is a complete mess and there's a lot of uncertainty over there. The free agency window keeps on getting moved, which leads me to believe that we're probably going to have a somewhat late start to the season again. It would not be a surprise to see the regular season not start until May for a second season in a row. And if that happens, literally the next month we're on to World Cup qualifiers. They're not going to have the time to do that. Are you kidding me? And if next season follows a similar one to 2022, then the year wouldn't end till around like late October, early November, which is right around the time when BlizzCon usually happens. Things could change with the Overwatch League on short notice. Maybe the season gets shorter, or maybe the playoffs don't last as long. I don't know exactly what the plan would be there. But right now, I would not expect a lot of Overwatch League players in particular to be super interested in this kind of event outside of the guys who really, really want to compete for their country desperately. Why put all of that extra pressure on your shoulders, you feel me? Which kind of leads me to believe that maybe the World Cup this go-around will be more so of an amateur event from a lot of countries' points of view, including some of the best ones. Okay, maybe amateur isn't the best word to use, but more so just non-Overwatch League players, you know? It could give a lot of different teams a fighting chance and also an opportunity to see a lot of the bright, rising stars that could be in the league someday. Think about the wealth of talent in North America, Korea, and Europe that practically gets zero attention because most people tend to not care all that much about Overwatch contenders. By giving them this chance to play in the World Cup potentially, their exposure is going through the roof compared to the usual. It's kind of an all-around W in that regard. The players get gains from this, they get exposure, but then the fans, they get to find out about brand new upcoming talent, and they still get to root for their country at the same time and be very hyped about the whole thing. So honestly, in a way, I don't entirely mind if a bunch of Overwatch League players end up taking a hard pass on this, as it's just a really fun way to give some other people a chance for once. But of course, at the same time, this would upset a lot of fans, I feel like. You want to see your dream players. A lot of people finally want to see Prophet play for Team South Korea, or maybe, you know, American Tornado representing Team USA, etc. That's the kind of stuff that people are really excited for, and there's a really realistic world where you don't end up seeing any of that. I could be wrong because it's kind of been similar in past years, but man, could you imagine being a playoff team, playing all the way until the fall, and then right after that, you're immediately going to the World Cup after all of that burnout and exhaustion? That just seems like a lot. So that could really drop away a lot of these top tier players who know they're going to be making some sort of playoff run come this fall. It's clear based on engagement in social media and everything that a bunch of people still are very excited for this, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all of them will be trying out. As we all know, communication is not Blizzard's strong suit, so maybe they'll find out something that makes this a real turnoff in the future. I'm going to remain hopeful that some some Overwatch League players do make an appearance, but I'm not going to hold my breath and think about these dream teams that we've gotten in years past. Let's just be happy that the World Cup is coming back and leave it at that. If you've never seen the World Cup before or you're excited that it's returning, let me know down in the comments below and give this video a big fat thumbs up. And if you enjoyed this news video and you want to stay up to date with all things Overwatch World Cup related heading into the future, be sure to hit that subscribe button and enable all notifications so you don't miss out on a single video. And until next time, this is ATP signing out. Peace.